Flight attendants deal with 160 to 360 passengers per flight. But there's one behavior so universally hated that it drives them to quit the profession entirely. In 2024, the FAA received record complaints about passenger behavior, with flight attendants reporting unprecedented levels of stress and job dissatisfaction. But here's what will shock you. Some of the most annoying behaviors aren't obvious ones like aggression or drunkenness. They're polite actions passengers think are helpful, but actually make flight attendants' jobs a living nightmare. We're counting down 15 things flight attendants secretly hate, and number 1 is something 90% of passengers do thinking they're being courteous. Stay until the end, because understanding these will transform you from an annoying passenger into one flight attendants actually appreciate. 15. The headphone zombie, service interruption nightmare.
My biggest pet peeve is passengers not taking out their headphones during service. We have anywhere from 160 to 360 people on our flights, and asking the same questions over and over gets very tiring.
Picture this. Drink cart approaches, flight attendant asks for your order, but you're completely absorbed in entertainment with noise-canceling headphones. They repeat themselves multiple times, delay service for everyone behind you, and eventually resort to hand gestures like charades. The psychology runs deeper than rudeness. Flight attendants work tight schedules with specific service requirements. Every passenger who ignores them creates delays cascading through the entire cabin, affecting meal timing and crew efficiency. What they want: remove headphones when crew approaches. Make eye contact to acknowledge their presence. Simple awareness shows respect. But ignoring service is nothing compared to treating flight attendants like personal servants. Flight attendants aren't personal butlers trapped in the sky with you. Flight attendants are safety professionals first. Their job also sometimes requires them to be food service workers, therapists, referees, EMTs. Yet passengers constantly demand services outside their role, warming baby bottles, finding lost items throughout cabins, mediating passenger disputes, or babysitting children while parents use restrooms. This expectation creates resentment because passengers don't understand flight attendants' primary responsibility is safety, not convenience. Every non-essential request takes time from safety monitoring and emergency preparedness. Reality check. Flight attendants are trained professionals focused on your safety, not hospitality workers catering to every whim. Passengers often try helping by cleaning their area excessively, reorganizing overhead bins, or assisting other passengers. But flight attendants prefer handling these tasks themselves because they know proper procedures and liability issues. When you rearrange overhead bins, you might create weight distribution problems. When you help elderly passengers, you might not know proper assistance techniques. Your good intentions create additional work and potential safety hazards. Flight attendants have specific training for every task. Your untrained help often requires them to redo work correctly, doubling their workload while appearing ungrateful for your efforts. Better approach. Ask before helping. Let trained professionals handle safety-related tasks. Your consideration is appreciated more than your action. Flight attendants hate when passengers congregate in galleys waiting for bathrooms, blocking their workspace and creating safety hazards. Galleys contain hot equipment, sharp objects, and emergency supplies that passengers shouldn't access. Yet passengers treat galleys like hotel lobbies, chatting with flight attendants during food prep, leaning against equipment, and blocking access to safety equipment. During turbulence, galley congregations become dangerous projectiles. The workspace invasion prevents flight attendants from completing service duties efficiently. They can't prepare meals, access supplies, or respond to emergencies when passengers occupy their work areas. Simple solution: wait at your seat until bathrooms are available. Galleys are workspaces, not social areas. Please don't ask us for upgrades, flight attendants plead. We don't control seat assignments or have authority to move you to first class. Yet passengers constantly ask, argue, and even attempt bribes for better seats. Flight attendants don't make upgrade decisions. Gate agents, airline systems, and revenue management control seat assignments. Asking flight attendants puts them in uncomfortable positions where they must repeatedly say no while maintaining professional courtesy. The persistence becomes harassment when passengers won't accept initial refusals. Flight attendants report feeling stressed by constant upgrade requests they cannot fulfill, creating negative interactions that could be avoided. Reality: flight attendants can't upgrade you. Direct upgrade requests to gate agents before boarding. Passengers demand free drinks, extra snacks, blankets, or pillows, not understanding that airlines operate on razor-thin margins and charge for amenities to remain profitable. Flight attendants bear the brunt of passengers' anger about these policies they don't control. When told items cost money, passengers often argue with flight attendants as if they set airline pricing. They express outrage about paying for services that were free decades ago, directing frustration at crew members who have zero influence over corporate decisions. Flight attendants become unwilling representatives of unpopular airline policies. They must explain and enforce rules they didn't create while maintaining customer service smiles despite passenger hostility. Understanding: flight attendants don't set prices or policies. Your anger about fees won't change anything and only creates tension. Here's where most people forget that hitting subscribe helps other travelers learn these insights. That simple click shares this knowledge with people who need it. Flight attendants are disgusted by passengers who remove shoes and socks, walking barefoot to bathrooms or stretching feet into aisles. Aircraft floors harbor bacteria, spilled liquids, and countless germs from thousands of previous passengers. Barefoot bathroom visits particularly horrify flight attendants because airplane lavatories are notoriously unsanitary. The thought of passengers walking through those spaces, then returning to carpeted cabin areas, spreads contamination throughout the aircraft. The visual assault of bare feet also affects other passengers' comfort. Flight attendants report complaints about foot odors and the sight of strangers' feet during meal service or in tight seating arrangements. Basic courtesy: keep shoes on throughout flight. Feet belong in shoes, not on display or walking through contaminated areas. Flight attendants find it infuriating when passengers completely ignore safety demonstrations, especially those who act like they're too important or experienced to pay attention. Every aircraft has different safety features, exit locations, and emergency procedures. Even frequent flyers should review safety information, because aircraft configurations vary. Flight attendants know that passengers who ignore safety briefings are most likely to panic or make dangerous mistakes during actual emergencies. The disrespect shown during safety demonstrations indicates passengers don't take seriously the flight attendant's primary responsibility: keeping everyone alive during emergencies. This dismissive attitude can cost lives in crisis situations. Life-saving tip: pay attention to safety briefings regardless of flight experience. Your life might depend on that ignored information. Flight attendants dread checking lavatories because passengers leave them in appalling conditions: overflowing trash, wet floors, unflushed toilets, and worse. They're forced to clean up messes that would embarrass most people in their own homes. The small aircraft bathroom challenges don't excuse the disasters passengers create. Flight attendants report finding everything from dirty diapers stuffed in sink compartments to mysterious wet substances covering surfaces. Bathroom maintenance falls to flight attendants, not specialized cleaning crews. When you create disasters, overworked crew members must sanitize spaces while managing hundreds of other passengers and safety responsibilities. Basic decency: treat aircraft lavatories like your own bathroom. Clean up after yourself. Flush toilets. Use trash receptacles properly. Passengers who slam overhead bins shut drive flight attendants crazy, especially when they force oversized bags into spaces clearly too small. The violent slamming damages aircraft equipment and creates loud disturbances throughout cabins. Forcing oversized luggage into bins creates safety hazards when items fall during turbulence. Flight attendants must inspect and sometimes repack bins that passengers have stuffed improperly, adding to their pre-flight workload. The aggressive bin slamming also startles other passengers and creates unnecessary noise pollution in already stressful boarding environments. Flight attendants report feeling embarrassed by passengers' displays of luggage rage. Respectful approach: if bags don't fit easily, ask for assistance. Don't force luggage into inadequate spaces. Gentle bin closure prevents damage and disturbance. Flight attendants hate passengers who block aisles during boarding while organizing carry-ons, having conversations, or searching through bags. These delays create cascading problems affecting entire boarding processes. Aisle blocking prevents other passengers from reaching seats, delays departure times, and increases boarding stress for everyone. Flight attendants must constantly ask people to move while managing simultaneous passenger needs. The ripple effects include missed connections, delayed departures, and frustrated passengers who blame flight attendants for boarding delays they didn't create. Every blocked aisle minute multiplies into significant operational problems. Boarding etiquette: move to seats quickly. Organize belongings after sitting down. Keep conversations brief until seated. Passengers who abuse call buttons for non-emergencies infuriate flight attendants, especially those who press repeatedly when crew is obviously busy with other tasks. Call buttons are for genuine needs, not convenience requests or impatience. Flight attendants prioritize calls based on perceived urgency. Abuse of call buttons creates boy-who-cried-wolf situations where real emergencies might be delayed because crew assumes another frivolous request. The constant dinging also annoys other passengers trying to rest or concentrate. Flight attendants report feeling harassed by passengers who treat call buttons like personal summoning devices for minor preferences. Proper usage: use call buttons only for genuine needs that can't wait for regular service rounds. Don't press repeatedly if crew is visibly busy. Flight attendants' worst nightmare is passengers who refuse to follow seatbelt signs during turbulence, creating safety hazards and liability issues. Turbulence can strike without warning, turning standing passengers into dangerous projectiles. Passengers who insist on using bathrooms or retrieving items during rough air put themselves and others at risk. Flight attendants report being injured, trying to assist passengers who ignored turbulence warnings. The safety defiance also creates legal problems when passengers are injured after ignoring crew instructions. Flight attendants become witnesses in lawsuits that could have been prevented by basic rule compliance. Life-saving rule: when seatbelt signs illuminate, sit down immediately. Your convenience isn't worth injury risks to yourself or others. Flight attendants report increasingly inappropriate touching from passengers, grabbing arms for attention, patting backs, or worse, physical contact without permission. This behavior constitutes assault and creates hostile work environments. Unwanted touching violates basic professional boundaries and personal dignity. Flight attendants shouldn't have to endure physical contact from strangers as part of their job requirements, yet it happens regularly. The power dynamic makes resistance difficult because flight attendants must maintain professional demeanor while being harassed. Passengers often don't realize their friendly touching is actually assault that traumatizes crew members. Absolute boundary: never touch flight attendants without permission. Use words, not physical contact, to get attention. Now for the behavior that drives flight attendants to therapy. 1. The meltdown master. Public emotional explosion. The absolute worst behavior flight attendants secretly hate is passengers who have complete emotional meltdowns over minor inconveniences, turning aircraft into therapy sessions for hundreds of strangers. Flight attendants report that adult passengers screaming, crying, or having panic attacks over delayed flights, seat assignments, or service issues create the most stressful work environment possible. These meltdowns affect every passenger and crew member aboard. The emotional labor required to manage adult tantrums while maintaining safety and service standards exhausts flight attendants mentally and physically. They become unwilling therapists for passengers who can't regulate emotions appropriately. Meltdowns also frighten other passengers, especially children, creating chain reactions of anxiety throughout cabins. Flight attendants must manage multiple stressed passengers while dealing with the original emotional disaster. The psychology behind meltdowns often involves passengers who feel powerless in airline systems taking frustrations out on flight attendants who also lack control over systemic problems. This misplaced anger creates toxic environments for everyone. Mature response: airlines have problems, flights get delayed, things go wrong. Channel frustration appropriately instead of traumatizing innocent crew members and fellow passengers. Conclusion: the flight attendant perspective revealed. These behaviors aren't random complaints or unreasonable demands. They're consistent patterns that make already challenging jobs unbearable for safety professionals trying to keep you alive while providing service. Flight attendants deal with life or death responsibilities while managing customer service expectations in cramped, high-stress environments. Every annoying behavior multiplies across hundreds of passengers and dozens of flights, creating cumulative trauma that drives people from the profession. The common thread through all 15 behaviors: passengers treating flight attendants like servants instead of safety professionals, ignoring their expertise, and prioritizing personal convenience over collective courtesy. But understanding changes everything. You're now equipped to be the passenger flight attendants appreciate instead of endure. You understand their challenges, respect their expertise, and can make their difficult jobs slightly easier. Type "respectful flyer" in the comments if this changed your perspective on flight attendant interactions. That tells us you're committed to better travel behavior, and we'll create more content about making flying better for everyone. The airline industry has enough stress built into it. Passengers don't need to add unnecessary drama, disrespect, or danger to an already complex system managed by overworked professionals. Subscribe for more insights into travel industry perspectives that help you become a better, more informed traveler who makes flying better for everyone involved. Control over systemic problems. This misplaced anger creates toxic environments for everyone. Mature response. Airlines have problems, flights get delayed, things go wrong. Channel frustration appropriately instead of traumatizing innocent crew members and fellow passengers. Conclusion. The flight attendant perspective revealed. These behaviors aren't random complaints or unreasonable demands. They're consistent patterns that make already challenging jobs unbearable for safety professionals trying to keep you alive while providing service. Flight attendants deal with life or death responsibilities while managing customer service expectations in cramped, high-stress environments. Every annoying behavior multiplies across hundreds of passengers and dozens of flights, creating cumulative trauma that drives people from the profession. The common thread through all 15 behaviors: passengers treating flight attendants like servants instead of safety professionals, ignoring their expertise, and prioritizing personal convenience over collective courtesy. But understanding changes everything. You're now equipped to be the passenger flight attendants appreciate instead of endure. You understand their challenges, respect their expertise, and can make their difficult jobs slightly easier. Type "respectful flyer" in the comments if this changed your perspective on flight attendant interactions. That tells us you're committed to better travel behavior, and we'll create more content about making flying better for everyone. The airline industry has enough stress built into it. Passengers don't need to add unnecessary drama, disrespect, or danger to an already complex system managed by overworked professionals. Subscribe for more insights into travel industry perspectives that help you become a better, more informed traveler who makes flying better for everyone involved.